Basin PBS presents the Midland Storytelling Festival from the Anwar Family Studio.
Good morning and welcome to the 29th Annual Midland Storytelling Festival. I'm Sue Roseberry and I'll be your host this morning. Today is our Education Connection Day. Our Midland Storytelling Festival has always included a connection with education. Ordinarily, we would be meeting in person. But since we just can't do that safely right now, you smart and innovative students have inspired us, and we were able to figure out a way that we can still enjoy stories. So, we're virtual. Now then, let's get started. Our first teller is Charlotte Blake Alston. She's from Lansdowne, Pennsylvania. Now that's a long way from the Permian Basin students. She has been sharing stories with audiences both in the United States and abroad for over a quarter of a century. I want you to be good story detectives and pay close attention to her story. I need you to figure out who are the main characters in her story. Listen to see if they have a name and maybe what they sound like, look like, and what they're doing in the story. Are you ready? Let's listen.
Well, this story is a story I think you may have already heard before, read before. I'm going to tell it in a different way. I'm going to tell it in rhyme and rhythm, and you get to join in on the story. There's a chorus in the story, and the chorus is the part that we get to do together. And there's a clue in my chorus about what this story is about. So here's what the chorus sounds like. Ba, 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 trip, trap. Ba, 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 trip, trap. So let's try that together. Here we go. Ba, 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 trip, trap. Again. Ba, 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 trip, trap. Have you ever heard a story that has the words trip, trap in them? Yes, it's the Three Billy Goats Gruff. So we're going to start with that chorus all together, and then I'm going to start telling the story, but the chorus will come back a few more times, and you'll know just when to come in. So are you ready? Here we go. Ba, 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 trip, trap. Again. Ba, 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 trip, trap. Well, there are three brothers and they are good. They're the sweetest little goats in the neighborhood. They're nice, polite, don't do bad stuff. And the name of these brothers is the Billy Goats Gruff. Ba, 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 trip, trap. Ba, 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 trip, trap. Well, these three brothers, they live uptown, and everything's fine when they're around. They help their neighbors when the weather is rough, and the name of these brothers is the Billy Goats Gruff. Here we go. Ba, 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 trip, trap. Again. Ba, 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 trip, trap. Well, they decided one day on a change of scene. So they headed to the park where the grass was green. They left uptown moving slow and clean. Here come the Billy Goats Gruff. Yeah. Ba, 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 trip, trap. Ba, 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 trip, trap. Now to get downtown, they had to pass the way of the meanest guy in the world today. He's ugly, fights dirty, he's loud and bold, and the name of this guy is the Ugly Troll. Ba, 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 trip, trap. Ba, 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 trip, trap. Well, Well, little brother Gruff looked Troll in the eye. He said, I'm not gonna fight you, so don't even try. I don't taste good. I tell no lie. Wait for my middle brother Gruff. Yeah. Ba 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 trip trap. Ba 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 trip trap. Well, middle brother Gruff said, don't be fooled. I'm on my way to the swimming pool. I'm tough to chew and I don't taste too cool. Wait for my big brother Gruff. Yeah. Ba 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 trip trap. Ba 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 trip trap. Well, big brother Gruff, he finally came. You think scaring little goats is just a game? He leaned real close to that old Troll's ear and he yelled real loud, "Get out of here!" Ba 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 trip trap. Ba 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 trip trap. Well, there were three brothers and they are good. They're the sweetest little goaties in the neighborhood. They're nice, polite, don't do bad stuff. And the name of these brothers is the Billy Goats Gruff. Yes, ba 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 trip trap. Ba 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 trip trap. Again. Ba 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 ba. One last time I said ba 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 trip trap. Give yourselves a big round of applause for helping on that story. Well, now I'd like to share a song with you, and I'm going to use one of my small instruments. This instrument has many different names depending upon what country it lives in and the words they use when they talk to each other, the language they speak. But most people call it a thumb piano because you play it with your thumbs. So this is my thumb piano. And I'm going to share a song that I think you may already know. We sang this song when I was little when we did hand clapping games with our friends. So you may recognize the words. I've just changed the melody. So all you need to do is repeat after me. Okay, whatever line I sing, you can sing it back. Here we go. Miss Mary Mac, your turn, Miss Mary Mac. All dressed in black, all dressed in black. With silver buttons down her back, down her back. I bet you have beautiful voices. Thank you. Your turn. She asked her mother for 50 cents, to see the elephants, jump the fence, She jumped so high, she touched the sky, she didn't come back, till the 4th of July, Miss Mary Mac, all dressed in black, with silver buttons, down her back, I know you're singing. Listen. Your turn. Thank you so much for singing with me. I'm going to use a different instrument that's going to help me. It's bigger than my thumb piano. It is my kora. Look at that. It's made from a gourd. A gourd is in the pumpkin or the squash family. And it gets cut in half, and then the insides get scooped out, and across the opening is animal hide. It's the skin of an animal, like a goat or cow, but after the animal already died. It didn't hurt the animal at all. As you can see, my kora has a long neck. There's the top of it. And you have lots of strings on a kora to play. There are 11 strings on one side and 10 strings on the other side. And to play all of those strings, you only get to use your first finger and your thumb on each of your hands. So you hold the handles, and then you take your first finger and thumb, put them in front of the handles so that you can reach the string. So that's my kora. This is an old story, an old folk tale that offers a thought about why a couple of animals behave the way they do. Long time ago, before you were born, before your mothers and your fathers were born, before your grandmother and your grandfather were born, before your great-grandmother and great-grandfather were born, before your teachers were born. That was a long time ago. Dog and cat were best friends. Yeah, yes they were. They had their houses right next door to each other. Their puppies and their kittens went to animal preschool together. They shared everything they had. Well, one day Cat was looking in her cupboards for something to eat, and there wasn't really much of anything there. So she started looking down on her floors and underneath her tables and chairs and in between the cushions on her sofa, and she found some coins. But when she stuck out her paw and she added them up, it really wasn't enough money to go to the marketplace and buy anything. So she decided to go next door to her best friend, Dog's house. Well, they looked in Dog's cupboards, and there wasn't much of anything there either. So they started looking down on Dog's floors and underneath Dog's tables and chairs and in between the cushions on Dog's sofa, and they found some more coins. And when they stuck out both their paws and they added them up, they did have enough money to go to the marketplace to buy something both of them could share. To buy something what? Both of them could share. To buy something what? Both of them could share. So off they went to that marketplace together. They walked and walked and walked. They walked and walked and walked. Down the road they went. Down the road they went. Down the road they went. Well, soon they came to that marketplace, and there was all kinds of food there. There was all colors and shapes and sizes and smells of fruits and vegetables. There was all kinds of poultry, guinea hens and chickens, and there was all kinds of meats, and they went from table to table trying to decide what to buy. And there's something I forgot to tell you about Cat. In the early days of time, before you were born, before your mothers and your fathers were born, before your grandparents were, before your great-grandparents were born, before your teachers were born, cats loved cheese. Yes, cats love cheese. Yes, they did. And they came to a table where a man had all kinds of cheeses. He had cheddar cheese. Yeah. He had Swiss cheese with the holes in it. He had Gruyere cheese, very fancy. Yes. He had goat cheese. Good. Yeah. He even had some camel cheese. Oh, delicious. And little Cat's mouth started to water. Little Cat's stomach started to growl. And Dog took one look at her and said, I know. you're a cheese fanatic, you love cheese. I'm a dog, I'll kind of eat anything. So if you want to use the money to buy some cheese, I'm happy to share that with you. And that's just what Cat did. She put down her money, she put down Dog's money, and she picked out the biggest piece of cheese that was on that man's table. It was such a big piece of cheese. It was really heavy, so they had to take turns carrying it. So Dog said, I'll take the first turn. So they hoisted that cheese onto that dog's back, and down the road they went, down the road they went, down the road they went. And as they went, Dog sang a little song, and this is what she sang. She sang, I'm carrying our cheese. I'm carrying our cheese. Can you sing that? Here we go. I'm carrying, in your doggy voice, our cheese. Again, I'm carrying. Let me hear that little howl. Ouch! Oh, I bet you sound just like Dog did back then on that day. Well, they walked along with Dog carrying that cheese on his back and singing his little song, and Cat running alongside. But it was a great big piece of cheese, and after a while, it started to get a little bit heavy. So it was time for Cat to take a turn. So they hoisted that cheese onto that cat's back, and down the road they went, down the road they went, down the road they went. And as they went, Cat sang a little song too, and this is what she sang. She sang, I'm carrying my cheese. I'm carrying my cheese. Can you sing that? Here we go. I'm carrying, in your catty voice, my cheese. One more time. I'm carrying, real catty and sneaky, my cheese. Oh, I know you sound just like Cat did on that day. Well, wait a minute. Dog heard that. That wasn't what Dog sang. Well, he thought, well, she must just be so hungry. She's not even thinking about what she's saying. Well, they walked along with Cat carrying that cheese on her back, singing her little song, and Dog running alongside. But it was a great big piece of cheese, and after a while, it started to get a little bit heavy. So it was time for who to take a second turn? Yes, Dog. So they hoisted that cheese onto that dog's back, and down the road they went, down the road they went, down the road they went. And you know what Dog sang? Here we go. I'm carrying our cheese. One more time. I'm carrying, don't forget that little howl, our cheese. Oh, I bet you sound just like Dog did on that day. Well, they walked down the road with Dog carrying that cheese, singing his little song, and Cat running alongside. But it was a great big piece of cheese, and after a while, it started to get a little bit heavy. So it was time for who to take a second turn? Yes, Cat. They hoisted that cheese onto that cat's back, and down the road they went, down the road they went, down the road they went. And you know what Cat sang? Here we go. I'm carrying my cheese. Again. I'm carrying, real catty and sticky, my cheese. Oh, I bet you sound just like Cat did on that day. Wait a minute. Dog heard that. That was the second time she sang that song that way. Well, he thought, well, she's so hungry, it must have gone to her brain. She's really not thinking about what she's saying. Well, they were getting closer and closer to the road that led to their houses. And the closer they got, the hungrier Cat became. Yeah, she could smell that cheese. Oh! She could taste that cheese. Oh! all Cat could think about was eating that cheese. And by the time they got to the road that led to their houses, she was so hungry for that cheese, she just could not help herself. She climbed up a tree and went way out on a limb and started eating up all of the cheese. Dog couldn't believe it. He looked up and opened his mouth to say something. At first, all that came out was, "Ow! We bought that together. It was your money and my money. We were supposed to share it. You cared more about your stomach than you did about our friendship." Well, that's okay, because I know something. You can't stay up in that tree forever. You're going to get hungry again, and you're going to have to come down. And when you do, I'll be here. Well, that cat stayed up in that tree for a long get hungry again, long after she had eaten up all that cheese, and she did have to come down. And when she did, that dog shot out after that cat, and dogs have been chasing cats ever since. I'm carrying our cheese. One last time, I'm carrying. Let me hear that little howl. Our cheese. One last howl for the night. Ow! Thank you so much.
That was so good. Detectives, were you able to figure out the main characters in the story? Now you can talk about all the clues that you used to help you figure it out later. Our next teller is Laura Pershin Rayner. She is from Ann Arbor, Michigan. Can y'all say that? Ann Arbor, Michigan? Uh-huh. She was a former librarian, and she won awards because she was so good at it. She is a specialist at telling stories. Detectives, when you listen to her story, I want you to see if you can use your clue-finding abilities to figure out where is Laura going in the story. Let's listen.
Hello. I want to tell you a story about when I was a young girl and I got into a little bit of trouble. You see, I grew up just a couple of blocks from a very big zoo, the Detroit Zoo. And my little sister Lisa and I would crack open our windows in the springtime when the nights grew warmer, and we would fall asleep to the sounds of the lions roaring. You can imagine the kind of dreams that we had. Now, when Lisa and I were very young, it didn't cost a penny to go to the zoo, so we went there all the time. When we were very small, our grandpa Julius would take us to the zoo. We loved going to the zoo with Grandpa Julius because he walked very slow and we could take in everything. He liked to take us to the place where the polar bears lived. There was a low wooden bench under some great big oak trees, and he would sit there for a long time watching the polar bears. And Grandpa Julius said that one of the polar bears, the very biggest one of all, with huge paws and a long pointed snout, reminded him of his Uncle Mendel in the old country. He'd say, "Looks like Uncle Mendel." and he'd watch that polar bear slowly climbing up to the rocky ledge, to the very top of it, and dive down into the deep pool of water below with a great big splash. And Grandpa Julius would say, "Hey, nice jump, Uncle Mendel." When we were a little bit older, our mom started taking us to the zoo, and she knew which animal we loved to watch the best. So she would take us to the bench in front of the elephants. We loved this one little baby elephant. Oh, Baby Lula was her name. And we would watch her slowly following her mama around, while our mom watched her favorite animals, the ones that wore Bermuda shorts and the PF flyers. She'd say, "Girls, people are the most fascinating animals of all." She'd say, "If ever you're stuck at a bus station or a train station with no book to read, you need to know how to people watch. It will entertain you for hours. I am going to teach you the fine art of people watching." And she would sit there, and as the families would walk by, every once in a while, there'd be kids holding on to those rainbow swirl lollipops that you could buy at the zoo concession stand. And my mom would watch the kids go by licking those lollipops, and she did not approve. She would say, "I can't believe their parents would buy them those lollipops. They're so enormous. Why would they buy them lollipops that would rot their teeth from all that sugar? I can't believe they'd buy them lollipops that are bigger than their heads." And my little sister Lisa and I would sit there eating our apple slices, wanting nothing more in the whole wide world than a rainbow swirl lollipop that was bigger than our heads. And I think that's how I got into trouble. You see, when I was 10 and my sister was 8 years old, my mom decided we were old enough and smart enough to go to the zoo all by ourselves. This was so exciting. It was a beautiful, warm summer day, and she packed us our favorite lunches because she knew we'd want to stay for hours. Our favorite lunch was grape jelly and cream cheese sandwiches on Wonder Bread. She put them in a little paper sack, and she gave us each 2 nickels. One for the train ride at the zoo, our favorite, and the second nickel for emergencies only in case we needed to make a phone call home. We put the nickels in our pockets, grabbed onto our sack lunches, and grabbed onto the handlebars of our Stingray bicycles and took off. We didn't have very far to go. We rode for 1 block. We crossed 10 Mile Road very carefully, and we were at the zoo. We just parked our bikes right at the entrance, walked right into the zoo, gave the conductor our first nickel for our train ride, and took off. Well, as we rode the train, my little sister Lisa had to listen to me patiently as I recited all of the very important information I had learned about the animals that I had memorized from the displays at the zoo. I said, "Look, Lisa, over there, it's the beavers. Did you know that beavers are the second largest rodents in the world? And their front teeth never stop growing." And then we passed by the rhinos. Oh, they were awesome. I said, "Lisa, did you know those rhino horns are made out of hair, not bone? And rhinos run on the very tips of their toes. And they communicate." You know what that means? It's like talking. They communicate through honks and sneezes and their poo. When we came to the end of the zoo, where the zebras lived, of course I had to recite what I knew. Lisa, did you know that zebras are black animals with white stripes? And every zebra has its own pattern? And the best part, a group of zebras is called a dazzle. And then we walked off the train. We took out our second nickel for emergencies only and rode the train all the way back to the front of the zoo. And then we began to make the long walk. It was a very big zoo. Past the camels, oh, it was smelly, to our friend the baboon. The baboons were fascinating creatures, and there was one youngish baboon that we seemed to recognize because he always responded in the same way to our song. We would stand there and we would sing, "It's howdy doody time, it's howdy doody time. Let's give a rousing cheer, 'cause howdy doody's here." And that baboon would show us all of his ugly yellow teeth and throw back his head and laugh at us. And then, of course, we would walk to see our favorite, baby Lula, with her giant flappy ears and her goofy grin. Well, by the middle of the summer, we had saved enough money from our allowance to buy a great big bag of peanuts at the zoo concession stand. And we were feeding one peanut at a time, tossing peanuts in to baby Lula. She would pick 'em up with her short trunk, open up her mouth, and we could hear her crunching on the peanut, shell and all. And as we were feeding her, I turned for a minute and I looked, and next to baby Lula lived the ostriches. And I said, "Lisa, maybe the ostriches are hungry." So we walked over to where they lived, and I was quite tall for my age. So I was able to stand on the ledge of the stone wall and reach my hand all the way over. And I had a peanut in my hand, and I said, "Anybody hungry?" And one ostrich turned and looked at us with her big dark eyes. She loped over towards us gracefully, stuck her neck out like a snake, grabbed onto the peanut in my hand, and grabbed onto my finger too. I screamed. It hurt. When I pulled my finger back, the peanut was gone, and my finger was bleeding. Well, my little sister acted fast. She grabbed my arm. She took me to the zoo concession stand, where a very nice man saw that we were without our grown-ups. He took us into the back. He washed off my finger, and he wrapped it round and round with white gauze until it was as big as a pickle. Now, I was trying to be brave, really I was. I was trying not to cry, but I couldn't help it. And he felt bad for me. He said, "I think there's only one thing that will cheer you up." And he reached behind and he gave me a rainbow swirl lollipop that was bigger than my head. For the rest of that day, my little sister Lisa and I walked around the zoo, taking turns licking the lollipop. Now, after about an hour, Lisa looked up at me and she said, "Laura, this lollipop doesn't taste so good anymore." I said, "I know, but we have to finish it before we go home, because you know what Mom will do. If she sees this lollipop, it'll go right in the trash." So we walked around the zoo, the entire zoo, for the next hour, taking turns licking the lollipop. My sister said, "Laura, my tongue's starting to feel very fuzzy." I know, but there isn't much time left. The zoo's going to close and we have to finish the lollipop. So we walked around and around, saying hello to our favorite animals, licking the lollipop. Well, after a while, the zookeepers in green uniforms, driving around in their little carts, were telling people it was time to go home. The zoo would be closing. And I said, Lisa, we're not nearly done with this lollipop. Oh, I have an idea. And I grabbed Lisa's arm and I took her to a place right across from baby Lula, where there was a prickly bush next to a garbage can, and we squeezed in between the two, and we squatted down and we took turns licking the lollipop. Lisa said, Laura, are we going to stay here all night? If we have to, I said. But just at that moment, two hairy arms came through the bush, grabbed onto us, and pulled us out. Hey, Sal, I found two more in the same place as yesterday. And we were escorted out of the zoo. Well, we got onto our bikes and I said, Lisa, we still have this lollipop and maybe we can take it home and maybe we can hide it from Mom. And so I tried to grab onto my handlebars and ride home, but I was afraid I was going to drop the lollipop. So I stopped and I put the stick of the lollipop between my teeth. But a breeze came along and my hair stuck to the lollipop. So I pulled my hair off and I had a great idea. I put the lollipop right under my arm, in my armpit, and rode the 1 block home. Well, as we got near home, we saw our mom running towards us. She was not happy. She said, how could you stay so late? I was worried about you. Laura, what is that under your arm? Psh, psh. She looked at that hairy, sticky lollipop, and when she got back in the house, she threw it in the trash. And that was the last time Lisa and I were allowed to go to the zoo by ourselves for a long time. But in October, on a beautiful fall Saturday, my mom decided we had learned our lesson. She said, you be back by 2 o'clock sharp. And we went to the zoo. And when we got to baby Lula, we couldn't believe it because we looked over at the ostriches and there was a big sign, warning, danger, don't feed the ostriches. And I was pretty proud of myself for that sign. Well, years passed, and of course, Lisa and I, as we grew older, we didn't have enough time to hang out at the zoo. But when we were teenagers, we went to a party in a house that backed right up to the zoo. And we were standing talking to friends in the backyard when all of a sudden someone said, what is that? And we looked up into the trees. There was a big baboon swinging from branch to branch. He had escaped from the zoo. Lisa and I looked at each other. We couldn't believe it. We were sure that was our friend the baboon, because he was throwing back his head and he was laughing and showing all of his ugly teeth, and we were sure that he was remembering the day that we got kicked out of the zoo, and he was laughing at us.
All right. Did you discover where she was going? Raise your hand in cyberspace if you figured out where Laura was going. Huh? What you say? Oh, you figured it out, didn't you? She was going to the zoo. Have any of you ever been to the zoo? Raise your hand if you have. Okay. Well, now, some of you have, and those that haven't can listen to their friends tell them about their experiences. And you can talk about all of the S's, that's the sights, the sounds, and smells from the zoo later. For now, we have one more storyteller that we need to hear. His name is Willie Claflin. Can you say that? Uh-huh. And he's from San Francisco, California. Our other two tellers are from the eastern part of the United States. Now, who has a good memory? Where was Charlotte from? Do you remember? And where was Laura from? Good. You remember that. Good minds. Now, Willie is from the West Coast, California, way over by the Pacific Ocean. Detectives, I want you to see if you can figure out, use your clue finding abilities and figure out a problem in his story and how it got fixed. He's going to share a song with you, and I want you to see if you can remember that song. It's going to stick in your mind. It's stuck in mine. You ready? Let's listen to Willie Claflin.
Hi, everybody. This is Willie here in San Francisco. That's little Moose over there. She's listening in. Have you ever gotten a song stuck in your mind? You just can't seem to get it out of your mind. You're walking down the street and all of a sudden a song will just pop into your mind. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And you'll forget about it, but that afternoon you'll be walking along again and all of a sudden, Rudolph the Red-Nosed. Songs get stuck in your mind. Well, they get stuck in my mind anyway. And I've had a song stuck in my mind off and on for the last 70 years. It's a pretty silly song. It goes like this. John Brown's jalopy had a puncture in its tire. John Brown's jalopy had a puncture in its tire. John Brown's jalopy had a puncture in its tire, and he patched it up with bubble gum. Now, kids, you know a jalopy is just an old, beat-up, wrecked-up car, and a puncture is just a hole. Okay? Well, anyway, so John Brown, he gets a puncture in his tire, and he patches it up with bubble gum. John Brown's jalopy had a puncture in its tire. John Brown's jalopy had a puncture in its tire. John Brown's jalopy had a puncture in its tire, and he patched it up with bubble gum. I learned this song in the 2nd grade. See, I grew up in a little town in the country by a big old lake, and it was a long, long time ago. It was so long ago there were no screens. I mean, there were no iPhones, there were no computers, there were no TVs, there wasn't even a movie theater in town. So no pictures. What did we do? Well, during the summer, after 1st grade, before 2nd grade, we ran around the woods, we built little tree forts, we swam in the lake, and we rode our bicycles around. And a couple times a week, we'd ride our bicycles down to the town park, and we'd have bubblegum chewing contests. It was a big highlight. Now, the bubblegum, it was like big pink squares, and you'd see how many pieces you could fit in your mouth and chew up and still be able to close your mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the kid with the biggest mouth usually won. Well, it came time for school to start. We had a brand new teacher. Her name was Miss Bell, or as we used to call her, Ding Dong Bell. Nice lady, really nice lady. Well, the first week of school, she said, boys and girls, in my class, we're going to have a lot of fun. You know what I'm going to let you do? I'm going to let you chew gum in school the first week. Don't tell anybody. I know it's against school rules. And it was against school rules. Our principal was very clear. There will be no chewing gum in Carpenter School. And if I catch anyone chewing gum, there will be severe consequences. That sounded scary. Severe consequences. We had no idea what that was, but it sounded bad and very grown up. and something we wanted to stay away from. But Miss Bell said we could chew gum in her class the first week of school. She didn't know about the bubble gum, of course. Well, Tuesday, second day of school, we all came to school with a big mouth full of bubble gum. Good morning, Miss Bell. How are you? She said, boys and girls, it's been a long summer. Let's see what we remember. Let's try a little addition. Who can tell me what 4 plus 3 is? Oh, I know. 7. It's 4 plus 3 is 7. And you know what, Miss Bell? 3 plus 4 is 7 too. It doesn't make any difference. And I know another way to make 7. 5 plus 2. Or 2 plus 5. Well, she had a very hard time understanding what was being said because of the bubble gum. And I don't know why. She thought it would be easier, but she decided to try spelling instead. So she said, boys and girls, let's try some spelling. Who can spell tree? Tree. There's 2 E's, Miss Bell, and they don't have 2 E's because they're long E sounds. B-C tree. If you were just 1 E, you'd be big, short, 2 E's, B-C tree, sleepy. Well, she still couldn't understand anything, and so she said, boys and girls, I'm so sorry. I know I told you could chew gum, but I can't understand anything that you're saying, so I'm going to have to ask you to throw your gum away in the trash can by the playground door. So we went one at a time over to the trash can, threw our gum away. We were mad. We had a sense of what was right and what was wrong, and she told us we could chew gum, and then she said we couldn't. And we threw our gum away, and we sat back down in our chairs. After school, waiting for our folks to pick us up, my friend Richie said, she seems like a nice lady. I said, yeah, she really does. I wonder what she's like when she gets mad. My father says you should always make them as mad as possible the first week of school. That way you'll know exactly what you're up against. Let's all come to school chewing gum tomorrow. I thought that was a good idea. So we rode our bicycles all around the neighborhood, and we told all the kids to come to school on Wednesday chewing gum again, just to see what she'd do, see how mad she'd get. On Wednesday, everybody comes into the classroom. Good morning, Miss Bell. How are you? But she didn't get mad. She just said, boys and girls, I liked the way you were able to follow instructions yesterday and throw your gum away in the trash can out by the playground door. I need you to do that again now, and don't bring gum to school again tomorrow. We threw our gum away politely this time. We felt like we'd gotten away with something. But after school, waiting for our folks to pick us up, Richie said, you call that getting mad? Well, you should hear my father when he gets mad. He gets so loud, you can't even understand what he's saying. He goes like this. Let's come to school chewing gum again tomorrow and see what happens. I said, well, the thing is, you know those stories where something happens for the 3rd time? Usually something really weird happens the 3rd time. Richie said, I know, let's see what happens. So on Thursday, we all came to school chewing gum again. Well, not everybody. There were 2 or 3 kids who didn't really dare do it, but almost everybody else decided that would be a funny thing to do. And so on Thursday, we all came to school chewing gum again. Morning, Miss Bell. Oh dear, she got mad. She got very mad. And she got mad in a very strange way. I have never seen anyone get mad like this. Instead of getting loud, she got incredibly quiet. And it was like she was a vacuum cleaner and she had sucked all the sound in the room right out. And she pointed a long bony finger, which grew in length to 4 feet. And she morphed into a witch. And she said, I don't ever want to see a single one of you ever come to school chewing gum again. And if you do, I'll make you take it out of your mouth and stick it on the end of your nose. We all ran to the corner. We threw our gum away in the trash can. We sat down. After school, Richie said, "Oh boy, I guess she does know how to get mad after all." And Friday, nobody brought gum to school. Nobody except Roger. Because Roger loved to get in trouble. That was his thing. You see, we had a funny kid, and we had a smart kid, and we had an athletic kid, and we had a weird kid, and then we had Roger, who loved to get into trouble, because when he got in trouble, all the grown-ups paid a lot of attention to him. So he came to school, but he came in late, so she'd be sure to notice him. He came in the door. "Good morning, Miss Bill. How are you?" She said, "What have you got in your mouth, young man?" "Oh, I don't have anything in my mouth." She said, "You open your mouth right now, young man." "Well, you know what? If you have 7 pieces of double bubble gum in your mouth and you open your mouth, you cannot hide the gum." Blah. He had to take this great big pink wad of gum out of his mouth, stick it on the end of his nose, and just to make sure it stayed there, she put a piece of tape over it, and he had to wear it there the whole rest of the day. Now, don't worry. This couldn't happen today. Teachers can't do that anymore. But back when I was young, they could do whatever they wanted to. Anyway, at the end of school, Roger was feeling kind of bad, and you could see little tears kind of trickling down his cheeks. So she took pity on him and said, "You can take the gum off now, Roger. I just needed to make a point. I can't understand you when you're chewing gum, but I'll make it up to you. I'll teach you this little song. John Brown's jalopy had a puncture in its tire. John Brown's jalopy had a puncture in its tire. John Brown's jalopy had a puncture in its tire, and he patched it up with bubble gum." Only we didn't sing all the words. We would substitute things to do instead of the words. I mean, instead of singing jalopy, we would make believe we were riding in a jalopy. And it was old, it was beat up, it was wrecked up, all the wheels were broken, the springs were broken, the road was full of holes. It was like riding down the road in an earthquake. And so we would sing, "John Brown's had a puncture in its tire." Try that. "John Brown's had a puncture in its tire." Your mother and father have to do that too. I'm sorry. "John Brown had a puncture in its tire, and he patched it up with bubble gum." Now the puncture, where the nail goes in and the air comes out, we used to go 1, 2, 3, psht. Try that. 1, 2, 3, psht. Now there's 2 things to remember. The first is that, and the second is psht. And Miss Bell used to say, "Don't use this as an excuse to spit on your neighbor." So, John Brown's had a psht in its tire. John Brown's had a psht in its tire. John Brown's had a psht in its tire, and he patched it up with bubble gum. Tire, that was my favorite. Make a great big tire, make a great big circle over your head like that. Okay, you see your head's where the hubcap would be on the tire. In the old days, the hubcaps were shiny, convex hubcaps. So when you looked at your face reflected in the hubcap, it looked weird. So we used to make the weirdest face we could think of for the hubcap. So try this. So now there are 3 things to remember. And again, you have to make sure your mom and dad are fully participating. And you may feel silly doing this, but imagine if you were me doing it. You would feel even sillier. If you feel silly doing this, that's the whole point. Oh yes, well anyway, John Brown's had a psht in it. John Brown's had a psht in it. John Brown's had a psht in it. And he patched it up with bubble gum. Now for the bubble gum. Make believe you got a great big mouthful of gum, okay? You have so much gum in your mouth, you can hardly speak. Now grab a hold of it and pour it out. And stick it at the end of their nose. Now, don't do this with real gum, you understand? No. Do not do this with real gum, or you'll have to get a very funny haircut. So the song is going to end like this. And he patched it up with... Here we go. John Brown's had a psht in its. John Brown's had a psht in its. John Brown's had a psht in its. And he patched it up with. So that's the song I'm stuck with. I hope you don't get stuck with it too.
Oh, that was simply amazing. When he started singing that song, it made me want to get up out of my seat and get my little dance on. Wasn't that great? Did you figure out the problem in his story? What was it? And he used a long word when he talked about a hole. That was an exciting word, wasn't it? What was it? You got it. Puncture. That's another great word for a hole. Boys and girls, you can always find words that pop and make your sentences be really great. And now you know a song about Willie's problem too, and I bet it's gonna stick in your head just like it's stuck in mine. I have had such a great time being with you, detectives. I want to thank Charlotte, Laura, and Willie for those great, awesome, and amazing stories. But guess what? It's not over. It's not over. Students, you and your families are invited to tune in right here on Basin PBS this evening at 4:00 p.m. for a family fun night of storytelling that will feature some students from right here in Midland, Texas, that were top tellers in our youth storytelling contest, as well as nationally acclaimed tellers Barbara McBride Smith of Jonesboro, Tennessee, and Donald Davis of Ocracoke, North Carolina. For some of you, you may be wondering how you can get involved with the Storytelling Festival. Well, I'm going to tell you. Have your mom and your dad take you over to the Midland Storytelling Facebook page so you can follow all the information there about the things that we're doing. And you can also go to our website at www.midlandstorytellingfestival.org and see all the details about all the great stuff we have coming up. Then when we come around to October next year, and you want to be like these young people who are going to be part of our fun night and be in the workshops and tell stories, you'll be all over it. I look forward to seeing you more at the festival.